Hey guys, and welcome back to C# Mallorca. My name is Matthew, and in the last video we went through lists and collections in C#. If you want to see that video, go check it out. I'll put a link to it in the top right hand corner here. In today's video we're going to go through LINQ, which stands for Language Integrated Query, and it's basically just a technology that allows us to write data querying code in one simple format, which is especially popular with things like Entity Framework, which we'll also go through at some point. The way we're going to go through LINQ is to just take some manual data that we'll chuck into a couple of lists and then write a few queries against to get the data in a few different ways. Because we've already been through a lot of this stuff with lists and collections, I'm going to start off with a bit of the code already written. But if you want to follow along, just pause, you'll see it on screen, you can type it into Visual Studio and then you can work through the examples with me. So, as always, if you find this video helpful, please give it a like, and if you want to see more, subscribe and turn on notifications so that you can be notified as soon as the next videos are available. So without any further delay, let's get going. Okay, so as usual, we'll be working with a C# console application, and I've put a link to the video on how to create a C# console application in the top right hand corner in case you need to see that. So as I said, we've got some code here that's already been written. We've got our sales agent class down here as well as the agent service class, and you can see in both of these classes that we have an agent ID defined as a property, and that's just so that we can link the agent services to the sales agents. In the real world, we wouldn't do this. We would have a list property on the sales agent class like this. It would be a list of agent services that we'd have, and then we just store the services for each agent in this property. But we're going to do it this way for today, just to illustrate some of the functionality that LINQ offers us. And you can also see that we've overridden the toString method on both of these classes, and that's just so that we get a convenient message returned by the toString, so we don't have to write it out manually each time we want to write the entity to the console. Then we've got two methods that return lists of data to us. We've got the get sales agents method, which just returns to us a list of 3 sales agents, and then we've also got the get agent services method, which just returns a list of agent services, and you can see some of the IDs are related to the IDs of the agents as well. And then in the main method for our application, we just have our console.readline call. So let's get going then. First off, we'll just illustrate how we can loop through the collection of agents and print them to the console. So let's type in for each our agent in get sales agents console.writeLine agent, and then run our application, and great, we can see each agent printed to the console. Okay, now let's say for example we only wanted to get the agents whose IDs are less than 3. This is where LINQ can come in handy. There are 2 forms of LINQ that we can use. There's the query syntax and the method syntax. I personally prefer to use the method syntax most of the time because I find it easier to use. Sometimes though, when doing joins using LINQ, I find it easier to follow the query syntax. We'll use the method syntax for the most part, and then also do an example or 2 using the query syntax as well, just so that you can see both of them. So when using the method syntax, we just call these methods directly on the list variable. This method here called get sales agents returns a list of agents, so we can just append our method queries directly onto the result like this by typing in .where. Now in the brackets we use what is called a Lambda expression, which is just a convenient syntax to use for expressing anonymous methods. If you place your cursor inside the where method and you hold down the Control and Shift keys and hit the spacebar, you'll see the various constructors that you can use for this method. If you look here, it takes a func sales agent bool delegate as a parameter, and this just means that it's a function that takes in a sales agent as an input parameter and returns a boolean, and it's used to determine whether or not the item should be returned by our query. The syntax then takes one input parameter, which we can just indicate with any variable name we like. So let's just type in A for agent, and then we use the syntax equals and angle brackets, which I just refer to as goes to, which then takes us to the start of our method for determining whether the agent should be included or not. Now this A is a variable of type sales agent, and the function needs to return a boolean. We need to type in an expression that returns a boolean. So if we type in A dot, we can see all the properties for the sales agent. So we're looking for the items where the agent ID is less than 3, like this. Now if we run the program, we can see the agents with the ID less than 3 return to the console. There's also an order by descending method that we can call like this. If we want to sort the list, you'll notice that we are able to just daisy chain these method calls onto the same query. We don't need to do these on separate lines or anything like that. The order by method takes a Lambda expression as well, which just returns a key selector, which is just specifying the field we want to sort on. So we can just type in A goes to A dot last name. If we want to sort on multiple fields, we can just call the then by method on the query in the exact same way. For this one, we'll choose to sort by first name in case the last names are the same for some people. So if we run the program now, we can see that our list is sorted accordingly, which is perfect. There are also methods that you can use to find one element in a list that you might want to make use of for some reason. For example, let's say we want to find the person in the list with the name Mike. We can do something like this. Var Mike equals get sales agents dot first m goes to m dot first name equals Mike. And then we can write him to the console like this. And if we run the application, we can see that Mike is written to the console. Perfect. However, with this method, let's say we search for someone who isn't in the list, like Sarah. If we run the application now, we get a runtime error saying that no element is found. In these scenarios, I prefer to use the first or default method instead of just the first method. This returns the first element found that matches the criteria, or if nothing is found, it returns the default value of the type, which for reference types is always null. That way, when we run the search, we can check the return value like this. So we could type in something like if Mike not equal to null, then we can write him to the console, or else we can write to the console no Mike found with that name. So if we run the code now, we don't get the error, we just get a message saying no Mike found with that name. And then if we change the name back to Mike and we run the program again, then Mike is found again. Alright, so let's take a look at the query method, at the query syntax, and do a few examples that way. Let's say we wanted to retrieve all the services that have the agent ID value of 1. We can type in var query agent 1 services equals from service in get agent services where service.agent ID equals 1 select service. Service is similar to the A we used in our Lambda expressions earlier. It just represents the name that we are using to access the objects returned by the query. The query will return a list of agent service objects to us. Let's do a for each loop over them and write them to the console by typing in for each var service in query agent services console.writeLine service, and let's just format this a bit nicer. Then let's run the application and we can see each of the services that belong to the agent with the agent ID of 1, return to the console. Okay, great. So for our last example, let's go through joining these two lists together. So we can retrieve a list of the agents, and then in the same list of agents, we'll have their agent services included as well. So let's write another query for query agent services equals from agent in get sales agents join service in get agent services on agent dot agent ID equals service dot agent ID into agent services. So this is a group that contains the service objects for each agent, and then we can select a new object containing the agent and the services by typing in select new agent equals agent, and then agent services equals from agent service to in agent services select agent service 2. Now this might be a bit confusing, but basically what we end up with is a list of objects that contain two properties. One is the agent and the other property is the agent services collection of services for that agent. Let's print these out using another for each loop to make things a bit clearer. So let's type in for each agent in query agent services console.writeLine agent.agent, and then let's put in another for each loop to go through the individual services, typing in for each var service in agent.agent services, and then just write a nice little message that includes the service, and we'll indent it a bit so that it's a bit clearer when we run the application. And then let's run the app, and we should see that each agent and their services are written to the console. So that's great. Alright guys, I think that's enough examples for now. Hopefully you get the gist of LINQ and how it might come in handy in your applications going forward. In the next video, we're going to do something a bit more practical and real world like. We're going to go through integrating C# with WhatsApp using Twilio, and we'll go through a few examples of how to handle WhatsApp messages in C# and a few scenarios that we can use this functionality in. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, please remember to give it a like, and if you want to see more, subscribe and turn on notifications so that you can know as soon as the next videos are available. Take care, see you next time.